Hi everyone, it's me, Danny. Today we're going to continue the series about how to properly repot orchids, and we're going to talk about the preparations regarding medium and orchid pots prior to repotting. Some people like to boil medium before using it, and the logic behind it is to sterilize it and eliminate any sources of mold, algae spores, or other bad bacteria that you don't want in your pot. Personally, I believe this is unnecessary. And furthermore, because you're boiling it, I believe you're opening up the structure of the medium and making it more water retentive. Now, this is the perfect condition for decaying bacteria to do their job properly. And what I believe is that you're actually shortening the life of your medium, and it will decay faster. Now, if you're using pine bark that you obtain yourself from nature, it is in your best interest to sterilize it as best as you can. Also, you do have to kill all the living matter as best as you can, so you don't have mold breakouts. But I think that if you're buying medium from a reputable brand, you won't have these problems. They do sterilize it very well, and I believe they're also adding some antifungal agents. And personally, I have never experienced any mold breakouts or anything like that. But if you feel that you have any other reason for boiling it and sterilizing it really well, then you can do it. It's not going to harm the plant. But as I told you, I believe it just shortens the life of the medium. Another very common thing is to pre-soak the medium a day or two prior to repotting. Now, the reason behind it is to make it more water retentive, because brand new soil can dry out faster than old soil. Now, personally, I did try this, and I have to tell you that soaking wet bark is harder to maneuver. It just sticks to your fingers, and it doesn't go down in the pot like dry medium. And also, I just noticed that the pot dries out pretty much the same because it's new medium. It's not broken down, and the structure is not that open. So I really find no difference. But there are quite a few mediums that you do want to soak. Like, for example, coconut husk. You do want to keep that in water for about a few days. And also try to change the water every day or so while you're doing this, because this way you will eliminate a lot of the tannins that coconut can contain. And this is because you don't want to have too much of an acidic soil. And also, coconut husk may contain some salts that you don't want in your pot. Also, sphagnum moss, it's easier to work with it if you just moisten it up a bit. Personally, I prefer to work with dry medium because I just find it better to use. But if you are acquainted with a wet medium when repotting, then it's perfectly fine. You can soak it and then just use it. Many people will also say that after repotting an orchid, it is best to not water it for about 2 weeks. And this is because any scarring of the roots or breaking of the roots that you may obtain by handling the plant may cause an infection with fungi or anything that you really don't want to happen. Personally, I think it kind of knocks heads with the idea that you should soak the medium because the roots would get wet anyway, so you didn't pretty much resolve anything. But I have to tell you that I've never experienced this so far with orchids, and also there are quite a few people who do water their orchids after repotting. I think there is always a chance that you might get an infection from a wounded root, but if you're using quality medium, this stuff I think rarely happens. If you do want to play it safe, then okay, try to not water your orchid until the root scars and it's not an open wound anymore. But I have to tell you, if you're dealing with a dehydrated orchid, I don't think it's in your best interest not to water it. Also, if you're dealing with orchids who do require a lot of water, like Miltoniopsis, I don't think it's a good idea to keep it unwatered for 2 weeks at all. So it is your choice. If you have reasons to believe that you can keep your orchid unwatered for 2 weeks and this will do good, then try it out. But I just had to issue these warnings so you don't dehydrate your orchid, because dehydrated roots can actually die. Some people suggest that it's not a good idea to wash the orchid's roots prior to repotting it, and this is because you're washing out some good microorganisms that actually help the plant establish faster. My personal belief, after a lot of thinking about it, is that there are no microorganisms that help the plant establish faster, at least not in our pots. I will cover this subject in my next video and I'll tell you what I mean. So personally, I do wash out the roots if I have reasons to believe that in that particular pot there has been an infection with any bugs or snails or snail eggs. I do wash them out because I don't want them introduced in the new pot. Also, some people use pieces of the old medium with the new medium in the hopes that good microorganisms will be transferred. Again, I don't think there are any microorganisms available in the pot, but I will cover this in the future video. Personally, what I think this does is just introduce a source of nitrogen in the pot, a source of decaying medium. Of course, if it's just a small piece, it's not going to affect your orchid, and if you feel comfortable and you have your own strong beliefs, then you can do it. But try to remember that it's not a good idea to reuse old medium, especially not boiling it and reusing it, because the old medium is already really broken down and it's a good environment for the decaying bacteria. So I believe that by adding parts of the old medium is not actually helping you in any way. Also, I believe that using the old medium is really not a good idea. It will just add more ammonium to your pot, and ammonium, in my opinion, is rather toxic to the orchid's roots. But I will discuss about chemicals more in my future video. I always like to use clear plastic pots with my orchids because this way I can take a look at the roots anytime. I can see if I have a mold breakout or some parasites, or if the roots are really not doing so well. And it's not true that some orchids don't like clear plastic pots like Miltoniopsis. The truth is they don't really mind as long as they have what they need, as long as the medium is good and not toxic and they have air and moisture. Now, I like to provide extra ventilation holes because plastic doesn't let air come from outside. I have a video on how I make these holes, so I'm going to put it on the screen in an annotation and you can visit it. Clay pots are also used for orchids because they aerate the soil better. They're porous and they let air come in from outside. The thing with them is that the orchid's roots may attach themselves really hard to the sides of the pot, so when you're gonna repot it, you have to be very careful not to break too many roots. Some people suggest you crush the pot to save the roots, but it's really your choice and really it's up to you. If you have experience with clay pots, you can use them, but if you are a beginner, I would really recommend plastic pots because they can tell you when to water and they can tell you if your orchid's roots are doing fine or they have problems. This is about it on how to prepare medium prior to repotting. At the end of the day, it's really up to you and what works best for you. If you want to boil the medium, if you want to pre-soak it, it's really up to you. I'm just telling you my opinion and I'm giving you my reasons for not doing it. So you can choose what you want. You can try it out, as I think it's always best to try everything out and take your own conclusions. See what's best for you. Okay, next time I will try to discuss a bit about the chemical process or the lack of them in an orchid pot, as far as I know and as far as I believe. Thank you for watching, and if you have any other questions, please leave me a comment, and also don't forget to subscribe. And please excuse my voice, I am very sick. I'll see you next time. Bye.